Good evening and welcome to the August 20th edition of WJTS News. I'm Bryan Kelly. A Birdseye family escaped injury this morning as their home was destroyed by a fire. The Birdseye and Snellville volunteer fire departments were called to the Ronald Hunt residence on State Road 145 around 6:40 a.m. When firefighters arrived, the back portion of the home was fully engulfed in flames. Birdseye Assistant Fire Chief Jake Borden says approximately 25 firefighters and 6 trucks fought the blaze for about 45 minutes. However, they were unable to save the more than 100-year-old home.
There are about 3 or 4 roofs on the home, and it's an old house, and it's just been remodeled till it's a hard structure to try to put out.
At this time, firefighters do not know what caused the blaze, but they believe it came from the kitchen area. Ronald Hunt, the homeowner, says his wife was baking something in the oven when the fire began. Hunt says his family lost everything in the fire except their pet dog. He says he's not sure where they'll sleep tonight. The Huntingburg City Council has decided to cut some of its department's budgets to avoid an increase in citizens' taxes. Mayor Gail Kemp presented the cuts at the city's budget hearing last night. Here with details is our own Tony Frick.
Still goes up 51.8%. I only bring this to your attention.
Huntingburg's Mayor Gail Kemp is tightening the city's 1997 budget, not by cutting corners, but by drawing a line in the sand, as he puts it.
We end up with a grand total, at this rate, a tax levy of 2.0741 and 18.35%. That's what I had a graph on earlier, if you recall, that I told you was not acceptable.
After analyzing and chopping away, line by line, department by department, over $74,400 in expenses, Mayor Kemp took a painful stand to retain the 1.73 to 1.75 tax rate.
I'm proposing a general budget of $787,087, a decrease of $74,482 in the general fund. For 1997, that will give us a tax rate in this portion of 0.6174. The one you had last week or whenever was over $1. So we've knocked 40 cents off the tax levy out of the general fund alone. At this point in time, we have cut every bit of fat and niceties out of the budget. That's where we're stuck. But it's still not going to work. The sanitation department, I am proposing that you do one of 2 things. You either eliminate it in total, or you make it provide enough revenue on trash bags that it is no longer a charge to the tax levy.
With no new revenue avenues visible, the line was drawn, and Mayor Gail Kemp explains his decisions.
Try to arrive at ways to increase revenues or decrease the expenses. And what we finally were able to come up with is a proposal which I believe will bring the tax rate virtually to where it is now, or perhaps a tad lower. So we're trying to arrive that our citizens will not have to have any kind of a tax increase on the tax levy because of the city portion of the budget. But this has been a very painful experience because we are now faced, in order to do that, with making some very hard and difficult choices, and it will involve the reduction of services and the closing of 1 and maybe 2 departments.
There is no proposed expansion for the park department. Needed police vehicles and other everyday items may have to come from added funds. And as far as trash pickup,
depend upon what the council's final decision is as to what to do with the sanitation department. The first department that would be eliminated would not be noticed by the general public. That would be an in-house thing that we use within the city. The other one would be the sanitation department, And if the choice is made to eliminate that, it would be necessary then for citizens to either use the county dumpsters and or sign up for some private firms who also do the same service that the city provides. They won't be left high and dry. There will be a solution for them. It's just that the city won't be in the process. The department's budget has also been reduced by about $11,000 in another attempt to get expenses down. We were faced with the unpleasant prospect that if we had an exactly even budget, spend no more money, it still resulted in a 50% increase in the tax levy. And that's unacceptable. We're not going to do that. And the only way we could do it was to get very, very lean and tight and, quite frankly, take a meat cleaver to many items on the budget.
The budget was decreased by nearly $150,000 and will come before the council in its final form at the next council meeting. Tony Frick, TV 27 News.
The North Spencer School Corporation held a public hearing on its proposed 1996-97 budget last night. There were no comments from the public, and Superintendent Ron Aitchen says the board intends to approve the nearly $12.5 million budget at its special August 26 meeting. The advertised tax rate for the budget is $5.16. In other news from last night's meeting, the board was notified that repairs to the roof at Heritage Hills High School are expected to be completed this afternoon. And finally, the board hired 2 teachers to increase the number of first grade classes to 4. The board also hired another kindergarten teacher to increase the number of kindergarten sections to 3. The Southwest Du Bois Community School Board hosted a budget hearing at its meeting last night. The proposed budget is $10 million with a tax rate of $4.96. The budget will be approved at the board's special meeting on August 29th at the Vocational Technology Building. However, Superintendent Bob Yost says the tax rate will likely be cut by the state to approximately $4.63 per $100 of assessed valuation. In other news from last night's meeting, the board approved the proposed teachers' contract changes for the 1996-97 school year. Yost told the board that the proposal will include 3% raises in salary for all steps on the salary scale, with a 3.25% increase at top salaries for master's degree educators and those with at least 18 years experience. A 3% pay increase on the extracurricular salary schedule was also approved. The Northeast Du Bois County School Board hosted a budget hearing during its regular meeting last night. The board discussed the budget, which was recently advertised at $4,800,000 with a tax rate of $6.11. School Board President Larry Lorai says these figures will not be changed before the budget is adopted in a special meeting on August 29th. However, Lorai says the budget and tax rate may decrease after it is adopted.
When you advertise a tax rate, by the time late November that the state tax board goes over your budget, you'll end up with a lower budget than what you advertised.
This year's tax rate is 1 cent lower than the rate of last year at $6.12. Lorai says the school corporation's tax rate should remain about the same over the next couple years.
The high school will be paid off in December of this year. So when this tax rate goes into effect, the following year, we have that indebtedness that comes off, and then we'll be starting to pay for the middle school project at that time. So that's how we are keeping our tax rate down. We're retiring one debt prior to picking up another.
In other news from last night's meeting, the board approved the renovation of the existing high school track. The Crimp Lumber Company will serve as the general contractor, while the Rudolph and Reese Ceiling Company will be hired to do the actual renovation. The project will cost just over $66,000. Lorai says funding for the project will come from the corporation's Capital Projects Fund. He says the track should be ready for the spring track and field season. In other business, the board approved the purchase of nearly $25,000 in library books and materials for the new library at the middle school. The books will be purchased with money from the Capital Projects Fund. And finally, the board is going to check into the cost of replacing the carpeting in the hallways at Du Bois Elementary School. Principal Jack Cartwright says the current carpeting is 13 years old and is wrinkled in some sections. The Southeast DuBois School Board met in special session last night to discuss its proposed 1996-1997 budget. Superintendent Bill Roll says the hearing proceeded without public comment. The board is expected to approve its $7.9 million budget at next Monday's special meeting. The advertised tax rate for the Southeast DuBois school system is $5.33. I'll be back with more news after this. I just wish I knew exact figures. The DuBois County Sheriff's Department arrested a juvenile yesterday after he allegedly stole a county road sign. The Sheriff's Department says the juvenile broke the sign off of an aluminum pole and dumped it in a Birdseye residence driveway. The resident saw the car the juvenile was driving and wrote down the first three numbers from the license plate. The juvenile was later arrested and charged with theft and mischief. He has since been released to his parents. The Sheriff's Department is continuing its investigation. Sheriff's deputies are looking for 2 additional people who were allegedly in the car with the youth at the time of the incident. Damage to the county property is estimated at $175. A 1997 trial date has been scheduled for a Paoli man charged in the June 5th shooting death of 24-year-old John Eisenhower. 36-year-old John Hanover will go to trial on June 16th of next year. He is one of 3 men charged in the Paoli man's death. Also charged is 30-year-old Andrew Lundberg of Orleans, who is believed to be the trigger man. Lundberg's trial is scheduled to begin on April 1st. 58-year-old Philip Fouch of Orleans is the 3rd suspect in the murder. He will appear in Orange Circuit Court at a later date. Eisenhower's body was found on July 6th in the White River. Crawford and Switzerland counties are competing for a riverboat casino project each says it desperately needs. Casino Magic formally presented its plans for a $155 million project in Crawford County to the Indiana Gaming Commission yesterday. It wants to build a 350-acre resort near the small town of Leavenworth, about 28 miles from the I-64 bridge in Louisville. Hilton Boomtown is a partnership between the Giant Hotel Venture and Reno, Nevada-based gaming company. It proposed a $122 million project in Switzerland County. It's expected to be several days before the commission makes a choice over the 2 proposals. In other riverboat casino news, the Gaming Commission approved an operating license for Rising Sun Riverboat Casino and Resort today. The Hyatt Riverboat Casino will become the 2nd casino operating on the river when it begins operation in mid-September, as long as things continue to go smoothly. Hyatt officials say the company's investment in the project has risen to $140 million, up from the $99 million originally proposed. The Gaming Commission also plans to consider extending temporary licenses for riverboat casino operators under development in Lawrenceburg and in Michigan City. Militia leader Joe Holland is under indictment on federal tax evasion and bankruptcy fraud charges, but he says he's found a kindred spirit in Southern Indiana Congressman John Hostetler. Holland wrote to the Republican and other lawmakers with questions about the federal income tax system. Holland says Hostetler's answers led him to believe that the two share many of the same concerns about the 16th Amendment, which allows the federal government to tax income. But Hostetler's aides quickly played down any link. Spokesman Michael Jarr says Hostetler would like to abolish the IRS, but he's paying his taxes until that happens. The mother of a young arsonist claims a judge is forcing her family to move from Evansville to Illinois as part of the boy's sentence for setting fire to his school. Vanderburg Juvenile Judge Robert Linsing won't comment on his ruling, but Linda Wells said the judge gave her family until the end of August to get out of town. Otherwise, her 15-year-old son, Gerald Wheeler, would be sent to a juvenile facility. Wheeler was charged with setting a fire May 8th at Washington Middle School that caused more than $20,000 in damage. Wells said the family is moving reluctantly to Peoria, Illinois, where a 23-year-old son lives. I'll be back with more news after this. Turning to state news, many areas of Indiana have gone 2 weeks without any rain, and that's showing a decline in the condition of crops. In its weekly report on Indiana crops, the Indiana Agricultural Statistics Service said only 42% of the state's corn condition is rated good to excellent, compared with 52% last week and 59% last year. A seventh body will be exhumed as part of an investigation into 147 deaths at Vermilion County Hospital. The body will be disinterred August 27th at Sugar Grove Cemetery in Edgar County, Illinois. State police will then take it to the Vandenberg County Coroner's Office in Evansville for an autopsy. Results from previous autopsies have not been released. Sergeant Mark Hartman would not reveal the name and gender of the person whose body will be exhumed, but he confirms the person was among 147 patients who died in the Clinton Hospital's intensive care unit between May of 1993 and March of 1995. A Gary police detective credits the community for giving prosecutors evidence that could put California's pillowcase rapist behind bars for the rest of his life. Detective Robert Meacham says he's 99% certain there is enough evidence to convict Reginald Muldrew in 2 burglaries that took place this summer. The 48-year-old was charged yesterday in Lake Superior Court with 2 counts each of burglary and confinement and single counts of robbery and criminal deviant conduct. If convicted on all charges, Muldrew faces up to 60 years in prison. He was released from prison in December after serving 16 years of a 25-year sentence for 4 rapes and 13 related sex, burglary, and robbery offenses. He was linked to as many as 200 sex crimes in the Los Angeles area from 1976 through 1978 and was nicknamed the pillowcase rapist in California because he threw pillowcases over his victims' heads so they couldn't identify him. Purdue University says a student diagnosed with tuberculosis has been released from quarantine because he no longer can spread the disease. The student, who has not been identified, was enrolled in summer classes when he was diagnosed July 22nd with an active case of tuberculosis. Purdue officials say they ordered skin tests for 150 students, staff members, and others who had come in contact with the sick student. A 67-year-old Anderson man begins a familiar trip through the legal system today. Verldine Redmond has a 50-year history that includes 400 alcohol-related arrests and dozens of drunken driving charges. He's charged in Madison Circuit Court with 5 counts stemming from an alleged drunken run-in, with police 2 months ago. Deputy Prosecutor Brian Williams said his office hopes to send a message with aggressive prosecution of the case because of Redmond's criminal history, which indicates that he is a danger to the community. Redmond has remained in the Madison County Detention Center since June in lieu of posting a $100,000 bond. Indiana delegates to the Republican National Convention are confident Bob Dole will be capturing the state's 12 electoral votes in November. Gordon Durnill, the state GOP chairman from 1981 to 1989, says that all Bob Dole needs to do to win Indiana is run for president. Bill Clinton will be fighting history in Indiana, though. A Democratic presidential nominee has not won Indiana since Lyndon Johnson in 1964. The last Democrat to take Indiana before Johnson was FDR in 1936, 5 years before the United States officially entered World War II. GOP State Chairman Mike McDaniel says he's convinced Indiana will continue its tradition of voting for Republican candidates for president. He says the state wasn't fooled by Bill Clinton in 1992 and isn't likely to fool Hoosiers this year. After this break, Kurt Guxell will return with a look at sports. Stay with us.
Welcome to sports, everyone. It's Fan Appreciation Night at League Stadium this evening for the DuBois County Dragons. The Dragons will entertain the Will County Cheetahs. The first pitch will be at 7:05. The Dragons have all kinds of promotions and giveaways slated for the game. One of the key members of Jasper's drive to the state baseball title this past spring has picked the college to resume his academic and baseball career. Catcher Sean O'Connor has accepted a baseball scholarship to Indiana Purdue University at Fort Wayne, a Division II school that's a member of the Great Lakes Valley Conference, the same conference that USI plays in. The Mastodons are coached by former Lincoln Trail head coach and University of Kentucky assistant Tony Vittorio. Besides being one of the best catchers in the southern Indiana area, O'Connor hit .355 this past season with 2 home runs and 33 RBIs. The RBI mark was second to Phil Kendall's 39. He's been a 3-year starter for the Cats in the outfield and behind the plate. The Indiana Basketball Coaches Association Board of Directors have voted unanimously that an upcoming vote by the state's high school principals on class sports should be made public. Warsaw boys coach and IBCA president Al Rhodes says the association believes a public vote is needed to allow coaches to know how their principals voted on the controversial issue. After a night out, Scott Rowland and the Philadelphia Phillies begin a series in Los Angeles against the Dodgers and Bill Russell. Ismael Valdez will get the ball for the Blue. He's 12-7 on the season. David West will go for Philadelphia. He is 1-1. The NFL has suspended Indianapolis Colts fullback Roosevelt Potts for the entire 1996 season for violating the league's substance abuse policy. Potts has been was suspended on July 22nd for just 4 games without pay, but yesterday the suspension was increased to a full 16-game slate after a review by NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue. Potts first entered the league's substance abuse program in 1994, with alcohol being the cause. For a player to be suspended for all 16 games, he must be in violation of the program 3 times. Potts refused to say what he had done wrong to earn the suspension, other than to say he messed up. Pittsburgh Steelers coach Bill Cowher gave his 3 quarterbacks equal opportunity to earn the starting job vacated when Neil O'Donnell went to the New York Jets. Cowher named Jim Miller as his starter for the season opener against Jacksonville. Miller won the spot despite having less experience than Cordell/Stewart and Mike Tomczak. Cowher says T-Zach will back up Miller, with Stewart roving as quarterback/running back/wide receiver. Gus Frerotte will get the nod in Washington by Norv Turner over Heath Schuler for the Redskin quarterback job. Schuler drafted 194 spots ahead of Frerotte in the 1994 draft. Hurt his cause in the preseason when he fumbled once and threw an interception in a 21-point loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. Former Indianapolis North Central and Notre Dame star Derek Mays won't be playing for the Green Bay Packers when they come to Indianapolis to take on the Colts in the final preseason game at the RCA Dome on Saturday night. The Pack say the rookie wide receiver will be out 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury received in last Saturday's exhibition game. Packer GM Ron Wolf says the second-round pick will not require surgery on that injury. Elsewhere on the college football fields, Notre Dame freshman Lee Lafayette won't have much of a season. It's over before it even got started. The highly recruited defensive back injured his right knee yesterday afternoon during drills at Culver Military Academy, where the Irish are holding preseason training camp. Trainers on the football staff don't know for sure what's wrong yet with the injury, but he will likely be out for the season. A couple of notes here. The Ducks Unlimited annual summer smoker will be held on Thursday night, August 29th at the Ireland Sportsman Club. The doors will open at 5:30. Dinner will be served at 6:45. And finally, the IU Alumni Club of Southwestern Indiana is sponsoring a tailgate party for the IU Northwestern football game on Saturday, September 28th. If the game time is 1 o'clock or later, the tailgate party will start 2.5 hours before game time. However, if the game is earlier than 1 due to television and other circumstances, the tailgate party will be held after the game and last 2 hours. Party will be held under a tent near the stadium. Lunch will include grilled bratwurst and chicken plus beverages. Cost for a game ticket and lunch is $30. A lunch ticket only is just $15. For more info or to make reservations, you can contact Dr. Nancy Oddie at 482-6010. Reservations must be made by September 12th. Stay tuned. Bryan Kelly will have more news and the weather forecast for the next couple of days, so please stay with us.
Welcome back. There's no relief in sight as far as the hot and humid conditions are concerned. Let's take a look at the hot WJTS forecast. For tonight, scattered thunderstorms with a low of 70. And for Wednesday, mostly clear with hot and humid conditions and a high of 93. And our extended forecast calls for clear skies on Thursday with a high of 93 and a low of 73. And for Friday, hot and humid again with a high of 95 and a low of 76. And finally, cigarettes often kill, but a New Zealand woman's nicotine craving may have saved her life. Police say a blast of gunfire shattered the front window of Jenny Mills' house. Officers believe the drive-by shooting was targeted at someone who moved out of that house 3 weeks ago. Luckily, it happened just as Mills bent down to pick up a cigarette packet off the floor. She was shaken but unhurt. A sergeant says if she was standing, she would have worn it. No word on whether she smokes Luckies. Well, on that note, we will smoke on out of here. For Kurt Gooksell, I'm Bryan Kelly. Good night, everyone.